Hey guys. Yeah, I happen to be in the same black polo from when I went to Seattle, or excuse me, to Washington University. Um, I, I got rid of a lot of my material stuff a few years ago, and I knew that was like a good thing, but I wasn't necessarily sure of why or just how. I guess by ridding myself of a lot of those things, like I kind of freed myself up for some other things. But so like really just after, and this just happened like 2 days ago, but um, just another huge step forward in how this has all come together was, I know it might seem counterintuitive, but it's the act of surrenderance and like, oh my goodness, um, that is such, just like, it's such a critical element. Um, and because you cannot dominate this, like, and what I mean, like, you can't just, think that you're going to use your own intelligence to make all this stuff happen or to have these kind of realizations. And that's imperative because, like, yeah, where I'm going this afternoon, all I'm going to be doing from now on is just putting myself in a position to teach because, well, this is it. Like, this is, you know, as whatever you understand or think you understand of David Parker is just a concept because it's of an identity or personality. And that literally applies to each and every one of you. Dude, there's not anything, when you open your eyes, there's nothing there except consciousness that's literally being created. The reality that you see is literally being established moment to moment through our conscious participation, and it's that simple. Think of it as our reality, our perceivable reality, as being a user interface from a supercomputer of super intelligence whose operating system is exclusively controlled by our conscious participation. And dude, that's the only reason why, we would have to see all of us see the very exact percentage of the electromagnetic spectrum, for example. We all see, and this is an approximate value, but it's 0.0035%. That's to make this all seem like it's a necessary condition. It's part of the mathematics as to why we have to see that exact portion to make all this as so. It's also why, so like a computer typically operates off some sort of Boolean logic or some sort of other logic. Those are programming languages, and it's essentially the zeros and ones that you see in a computer. Or if you've ever seen the zeros and ones as a coding language to write the stuff for you be able to see the computer as you see the computer. Laugh out loud. um, so anyway, we uh, we we do, and I forget the actual name of the number because it's not important. The only important thing I remember or to be able to impart to him is that there is a 1 with 18 zeros. So there's essentially a million trillion calculations being performed in your mind every moment to keep this, and I'm talking about within a second, to keep all this going the way it is. And essentially that kind of logic stuff I was talking about is just answering a bunch of like yes no questions, or maybe it's left, right, up, down, true, false. Like those are all like questions of how binary would essentially work, or how the operating language works anyway. So anyway, I'm literally trying, like, I didn't realize it, of course, but I've been doing all this reality stuff to try to teach you guys that there's nothing there. And it's because, guys, we worship the outward world and stuff that's not there instead of actually, listen, you can try to say you love, and some of you, no, some of you actually do. And I'm sorry, I keep generalizing much more than I mean to, because there's a sense of urgency being imparted with all this. But it's because, guys, like, we collectively, let's just say that, collectively, and you only have to look at, you can watch the world news for 2 seconds, which they only show you like 10 or 20 in a whole broadcast anyway, because they don't want you to know how awful the world is, because then maybe you'd start to look for yourself. But anyway, like, we don't love like we should, and we don't love nature like we should, and all these things that are actually, they're important because it's part of our, It's part of our conscious mathematics, man. It's part of a programming for us. And we're just not doing these things. And once again, our higher selves, or whatever the concept most of you have as God is, and I keep trying to explain, it's just wrong, guys. And that's why some of you don't believe it at all, because all you've ever heard is this just erroneous nonsense for the most part. And because you believed it doesn't mean you're stupid or anything like that, guys. I applaud you, because that means you had a lot of faith. Like, it takes a whole lot of faith to do that. And some of you ended up becoming extremely moral and decent people because of such. But still, man, like, this is still all wrong. Like, that's great. It maybe made you act a little nicer, but like, unless you're living that every second of every moment, which none of us are, it's wrong. And so it's just not doing what you think you are doing, by going to church maybe an hour a week and helping out here and there. Like, it's not as much as you think it is. And that's all I know how to say it as. But because of our collective experience being so agreeable, and because our higher selves, or existence, the conscious substance of existence, whatever it is that we think is consciousness, is actually the substance of existence, and that's what we all are, and why none of this is here. Okay? But basically, we've imparted I only know how to say through vocabulary, is like a bout of indigestion, or like maybe an itch that cannot be scratched. But either way, this is a wrap, because listen, you're not losing your families or any of that stuff, because they're not there. Listen, that literally is part of our conscious programming. All that is literally within evolutionary game theory, and they know how to interpret some of it, right? Like, they got the whole, the predator to prey, what we assume is just this natural instinct through evolution. But they know that Darwinism is not right. Like, evolutionary game theory, the mathematics for it, replace the mathematics for that. So don't try to talk to me about evolution, because it's a bunch of math that explains something that never happened, but what you would have experienced, or what you would have perceived if it actually unfolded. And it was still misinterpreted from that, because it just doesn't. People think they're smarter than they actually are. Well, what about you? Blah, blah, blah. Like, no, like, I have surrendered myself to existence, man. Like, and that's the only reason. And because I know I'm not me, I'm you and everyone else. I am what most people have an erroneous concept of as being God, but so are you. So anyway, because we've given our source of consciousness, us, our higher selves, because we've given it this indigestion, or this itch that can't be scratched. Game over. Like, this, once again, this is just a informational and conceptual matrix, and it's done. I mean, it's going to shut down at some point. And that whole call to home thing, once again, a lot of these things have to be unpacked slowly. And because I could tell there was urgency, I was trying to, unpack more than I should have, and got confused in all the mess. But that call to home, what it was, those that are willing to believe that they're more than this body that isn't here, and that maybe they really are this being of pure love, those of you that want to find that out, guess what? You really are, because you're going to be able to, through a sheer act of love, man. And I even told somebody this back in January or February of 2021, but I was living in Virginia Beach. I told my buddy's wife, who's a cognitive therapist, and we were just sitting at the breakfast table having a conversation about life and stuff, man. Just a really nice conversation. And I basically told her I kept having this strange, what I thought at the time was a quote-unquote strange idea of, like, somehow I was going to assemble a bunch of people, and literally just by holding hands and through either expressing verbally or like just thinking something, that'll be figured out by us together. And it'll probably happen at that moment, because that's just how this works. And it was really hard for me to figure all this out, because not only do you have people that think it's all bogus and that you're crazy, blah, 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 you have everything working against you. And that's why this was such an unprecedented act of faith, because, dude, I knew that if I kept feeling love and all these incredible things, there's just no way it's wrong. And plus, the amount of information that was being learned in these very short bursts, I mean, I've never heard of anything like that. So like, yeah, I was fully aware that something was going on, but of course I had my doubts because like I'd never been an individual of faith. I didn't know what that meant. And I didn't even know that this was all one big act of faith. I just kept doing it because I thought I needed to be doing it. And boy, oh boy, did I need to be doing it. So like, yeah, man, this is just for those who believe, and we're literally going to ascend into some higher space. I really have, this is all very new to me. And whatever you have as a concept of David Parker, that identity or personality, that little sliver that still remains within, like, yeah, it doesn't believe in stuff like that. It just doesn't. But listen, man, like, I have surrendered. This is essentially the word of existence just flowing through me at this point. And guys, if that makes you weird or uncomfortable, man, I'm sorry, like, but this has to happen now. And there's just no other way to go about it, or there's no other way I know how to go about it. And like I said, I mean, if it is making you uncomfortable, you need to understand for like the 100th time. And of course, this is a lot to take in. It's a lot to process, and it's very different. It's very strange. And because of how we typically think, we don't like things that are different, or that we think or perceive as strange only because they're different. Our tendency is to first reject, or like, just kind of want it to get away from us. But that, dude, like, that's wrong too, man. Embrace it. And you got to remember, we let love become something that made us uncomfortable to talk about. And that's right, because some of you get uncomfortable hearing it. That's a crime. That is literally taking the dignity out of all this away. And don't be upset because you're not here, because you as that body and personality are not here. Look at it like this, man. That nectar of you, that very quintessence of you, is the very thing that through its own creative intelligence and consciousness was able to construct this space that we can all see and interact with just as it were there. But, even things like electron repulsion, like on a very minute scale, guys, like we know, or scientists know, that things never actually touch one another. I believe it's 1 to the negative 16th m, and who cares if the specific detail is right? The concept is right. So anyway, yeah, like things just naturally repel themselves because they're not there. And that's actually probably just a clue to show us how things aren't there if you actually go about studying things in the very wrong way that we always have. It's good for building like steamships and choo-choo trains and sending what was essentially a friggin' washing machine up into space that's not there. Guys, all that stuff renders itself as such because there's a conscious observer present. And even those apparatuses are extensions of your perception. So if you send some informational extension of your perception out in a bunch of information, that information is going to render images of information to correspond with a conscious observer that's actually there, because the technology is an extension of your perception, which is the conscious observer. Dude, you know how much friggin' paradox and counterintuition and irony I had to sort through because so much of our information says all that stuff isn't as it is, but it is. And I love you, and I am you, so I figured it out, and now I'm sharing it with you because we're gods. We're going to ascend to a place that I can't even describe in words because there are no words for them. Yes, this is all true. Yes, this is happening in front of your eyes. And if you want in on this, you need to seek me out. Seek the truth, man. I've got it for you because I love you, and I love knowledge, and I love truth, and I love love. And this is exciting, and we should be, oh man, this is literally like the greatest thing imaginable. And I'm going to share it with anybody of faith and anybody of the belief that, yes, they're more than this vessel that's not actually here, that they can be a being, a multi-dimensional being of pure love, and have an awareness that will allow you to know things that you couldn't possibly imagine. And it's beautiful, and it's wonderful, and it's good. And I love you.